Hey guys, I hope everyone's doing well. This is just a short video of assessment one, what you need to do, how you need to do it, what are the things that I'm looking for, just to provide some guidance for the upcoming assessment, which is due on the 30th of March, which is almost 2 weeks from now. And there's not enough time in class for me to actually go over the assessment in detail due to the content that's going to be covered this week. So I thought I'd just record a quick video. So please watch it. It will be useful to you. And yeah, here we go. So as you can see in front of you, I've got the module outline and assessment one is in front of us. It's about a review of an assessment measure. And as you can see, it's due in session 6, 2,200 words maximum, and it contributes 40% of your semester mark or your term mark. Okay, so this is just telling you what an essay is and what this assessment is measuring in terms of your ability. The main important point here is the description. Right, so let's go through it. It says select a test or measure that is publicly available or accessible on the internet, which claims to be a psychological measure. It should assess a psychological construct, such as personality, self-esteem, intelligence, interest. So you have got free rein to choose whatever psychological assessment you want to use. And after you've found that assessment that is available online, it would be in the form of a questionnaire, you need to take the test or the assessment and then use what you have learned in this module to date to answer the following questions about the test. And in doing so, you might use definitions to define the construct, and therefore you need to use credible literature to support your answers. So question number 1, explain the aim or purpose of the measure. What is the measure intended to do? Is it intended to measure personality? If it's intended to measure personality, then is it intended to measure all different types of personalities like the 5-factor model, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, open to experience? Or is it maybe a abnormal personality questionnaire that looks at psychopathy or narcissism? So explain a little bit about the purpose or aim of the measure, and in doing so, please cite the authors from which the assessment was published. You'll see when you download the article that generally there's a development and validation of the assessment instrument, and those authors would explain what the assessment is about. So when you describe the assessment or its purpose, you need to then reference the authors who have then told you what the assessment is about. All right, so number 2, describe the construct it claims to assess. Well, if we're working with personality and we're using the 16PF or the JPQ, which is the Jung Personality Questionnaire, you need to describe what this assessment is measuring, what construct it claims to assess, and in this case it's personality. So you need to explain and describe personality. According to McRae and Costa, 1998, the personality structure of an individual consists of the following 5 factors. Personality can be described as the predisposition of an individual to display certain characteristics that are associated with their inner being. And these can relate to their relationships they form, how they interact with people, how organized they are, how they approach situations and deal with problems. And according to another researcher, personality is defined in this way. So there you'd need to support your descriptions and definitions with literature and references. Number 3, classify the test. So what type of test is this? And you will recall in session 2 that we spoke about the different types of tests in terms of how they are classified. We've got tests of maximal performance, tests of behavior observation, or self-report assessments. So you'll recall that maximal performance assessments, they are typically like IQ tests that test your ability, and you really want to perform best. You want to provide the greatest effort on this assessment because you are now being measured according to a certain standard. People are going to use this information to evaluate your performance. And if it's more of a personality questionnaire, it would be more a self-report questionnaire because you're now completing an assessment by yourself, and then you're going to interpret the scores and understand your personality structure. You're not comparing your personality to another individual, and there's no best personality. So it wouldn't be a test of maximal performance, because there's no such thing as people with high personality and better personalities versus individuals with low personalities. So you're not trying to do your best on a personality assessment. So it'll be more of a self-report questionnaire. Behavior observation, I'm not too sure this would apply to this assessment, because you're actually taking a self-report questionnaire and you're going to understand what the results mean. You're not performing any particular behavior. You're not going to an interview where you need to shake someone's hand and your behavior is being observed, or to perform a particular type of job-related behavior like saying a speech or completing a simulation or completing work tasks. These are more behavioral observation tests, assessment centers. Okay. Right, so then you do that. Okay, then is the test standardized or non-standardized? You will recall that a standardized assessment means that the test has been developed and the results have been obtained from a norm group. So it's standardized because you are now being compared to a norm group. So how do your results compare to the standardized sample or the norm group? Or is it a non-standardized test like let's say, personality questionnaire? Personality questionnaire, you're not really being compared to other people. They wouldn't really take the personality results of 10,000 people and say, okay, we've got the personality traits of 10,000 people and we're not comparing you to it. No, more for an intelligence test. They would say, this assessment has been standardized for 2,000 people who have taken this intelligence test. We've now got a criteria or standard of what is high intelligence versus low intelligence, and they will take your assessment results and you compare to that. So is it a standardized or non-standardized test? Is it objective or projective? It'd probably be more objective because there's a clear way of answering the questions. Circle the answer. It's rated on a 5-point scale, for example. There's a clear way of answering the questions. Whereas projective technique, remember, it's more open-ended and you are presented with more ambiguous stimuli. And the responses are not really standard because everyone has their own interpretation of what this picture means. Remember in class I drew that picture and some of us said it was a butterfly, some of us said it was something else. That's more projective assessment. And you need to be trained on interpreting the results of a projective assessment. So I don't think we'll be working with that. Right, and then is it an interest, personality, aptitude, etc. type of question or assessment? And if it's a personality, you would say it's a personality questionnaire. Right. What scale of measurement is used in this assessment? We dealt with this in session 3, if you can just recall that. For example, if the assessment asks you to rate how much you agree or disagree with a statement on a scale from 1 to 5, and there's equal intervals between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, then you know the scale of measurement is equal intervals. Number 5, comment on the writing of the items in the measure. Consider the following. So now you need to review the items. And remember, I told you items means questions. So if you're taking a 10-item personality questionnaire, there's something called the TIPI, T-I-P-I, the 10-item personality inventory. It consists of 10 items or 10 questions. Now, if you're taking something like the TIPI, you need to read the items, the questions, and understand what they mean. Do they look good? Do they make sense? Is it easy to understand and respond to these questions? Or are they quite ambiguous and difficult to understand? They use weird terminology. So you now need to be quite critical when you're reviewing the items. What format is used for the questions? Are they closed-ended questions? So yes, no, or agree, disagree. So forced choice, what type of format is used for the questions? What method is used for responses? How do you respond to the question? Do you need to tick the box? Do you need to circle the answer? Do you need to click on the graphic? What type of method do you use? Do you need to think back over the past 2 weeks and consider your experience and then respond? Do you need to consider certain things before you answer these questions? Because sometimes when you complete an assessment, there will be an opening statement that says, please consider the past 6 weeks in your workplace, and then doing so, respond to the following items. Okay, is it clear and concise? That's quite self-explanatory. I like to go to church on Sundays. That's a very clear item. It asks the individual if they like to go to church on Sundays. Actually, thinking about it, it might not be that clear because, or might not be that great of an item because I might like to go to church, but I prefer going to church on a Saturday. That's just an example. So you need to be critical. Maybe I like to go to church on Mondays or Fridays or Saturdays. Maybe I like to have a Shabbos on a Friday, Saturday or Sunday. So maybe the word Sunday should be excluded from the item and it can be more general that I like to go to church or I like to go to Shabbos or I like to go to shul. I like to go to the shopping center. And it doesn't have to be on a particular date. So you need to start reviewing items with that mindset. How is variety introduced? So think about the questions. Sometimes assessments, they start off with easy items and they get more difficult as you go along. Maybe there are positively and negatively phrased items like I like to eat pineapple versus a question that says I think pineapple is bad for your health. So you see the first item was positively stated, whereas the second one was negatively stated. So you can say that there is variety in the items in that some are positively phrased and some are negatively phrased. Some items need to be reversed. Okay, sorry I'm moving quite quickly. I've only got 15 minutes to record using this app. Is the writing suitable for the intended audience? Okay, so now if this assessment is for adults, you don't want to ask a question like, I like playing with toys, because that's more for children and adolescents. We would want something, I like to engage in challenging tasks, perhaps, for an adult assessment. Is any bias evident? If so, identify it. And what changes could you suggest based on your critique of the items? Is any bias evident? Perhaps the assessment uses the word soccer, and this is maybe imported from the UK. Well, let's say it uses the word football. I like to engage in football. Football is more applicable to the UK context, not South Africa. So we could say that there is a bit of bias from a cultural perspective. South Africans would not understand the word football, but rather soccer. And then what changes could you suggest? Comment on the reliability and validity of the tool and indicate whether or not this is a good test or not. Please listen carefully in session 4. We're going to be dealing with the psychometric properties of instruments, which deal with reliability and validity. Right, and then describe the score or result that you obtain. So take the assessment, measure up your results and see what they mean and give your opinion on the results. And then what decisions, if any, could be made based on the results obtained from this test? Well, maybe my IQ is not that great and I need to work on it. Maybe my emotional intelligence needs to be improved. And this is what I've interpreted from the results. Based on my low scores, I can see that I need to work with people in a lot more let's say, respectful manner, treat people fairly, and I need to work on my emotional intelligence. Okay, then lastly, include a copy of the link to the psychological test that you have completed and submit this as part of your assessment. You can attach this as an appendix at the end of your paper. So I want you to actually take the assessment, screenshot it, let me see your results, make sure I can see your calculations, how you got to your answers, and then provide a link to the actual assessment. Okay, and then this is the marking guide that you can just work through. It will help guide you a lot more. Did you use relevant literature? Did you accurately analyze the information and the scores? Did you explain some theory? Maybe you're using personality and you wanted to explain something about personality theory. And did you identify any challenges in this assessment? Okay, great. And it's out of 100. I wish you guys all the best. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask me. I think the most important point right now is to get an assessment that is accessible on the internet, see if there are clear scoring instructions, take the assessment and start with the assignment. Awesome, guys. Good luck. I wish you all the best. And if you have any further questions, just send me an email or ask it on the WhatsApp group and I'll gladly respond. But just be attentive during session 4 when we talk about reliability and validity, and you'll know how to answer that section as well.